water and rescue some of those people who are stuck in their homes. I've talked to some people here who say this is the worst they've ever seen it in this community.
And your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average has slipped backward again, now down more than 1,000 points, 1,061 right now. The NASDAQ is down 652, the S&P 500 down 169 right now. And our KSL weather, we're going to be as hot as we get here, 101, 103. That's next. KSL News Time, 101.
Here's a way to get breaking news updates anywhere you go.
At the store or in a work meeting, you can get breaking news on your phone.
You can quickly read it, swipe, or click for more. It's super discreet, super fast.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
You may have expected today to be like yesterday or the day before, but when it comes to what today really is, you may need to look again. You see, today's the day to reach out to Loyal Energy and ask about the $1,500 they have waiting for you if you're a homeowner and you commit to going solar. Yes, $1,500. That's pretty unusual, but actually, so's their name. Why Loyal Energy? Because their goal's to be your honest and loyal energy company that puts you first. Look, you're not stuck with your current energy company, and Loyal Energy's ready to help you break free with cutting-edge solar energy and roofing solutions that deliver clean and sustainable power. And they're willing to pay you $1,500 to go solar and start seeing savings from the first day. You weren't expecting this from today, but here it is. Transform your energy usage, reduce costs, and contribute to a sustainable environment at loyalenergy.com. Loyalenergy.com.
Hey everyone, it's Ted from Consumer Cellular, the guy in the orange sweater, and this is your wake-up call. If you're paying too much for wireless service, you don't have to keep having that nightmare. Consumer Cellular has the same fast, reliable coverage as the leading carriers for up to half the cost. So why keep spending more than you have to? Seriously, wake up and call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com.
Savings based on cost of Consumer Cellular single line 1, 5, and 10 gig data plans with unlimited talk and text compared to lowest cost single line postpaid unlimited talk, text, and data plans offered by T-Mobile and Verizon January 2024.
Hey, what are you doing up on the step stool?
About to clean these light fixtures. The whole family's coming over, and if there's even a speck of dust in the house, my abuela will find it.
Here, I got a Swiffer duster to help with that.
A Swiffer what?
A Swiffer duster. It has this cool extendable handle that reaches 6 feet to get high and low, with fluffy dusters that easily trap and lock dust.
So no more step stool?
No more step stool.
Easily trap and lock dust from hard-to-reach places with the Swiffer duster. Love it or your money back.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. And here's Ricky Meese.
Freeway traffic rolling along and looking good. We do have an accident, though, in Weber County. This is actually in the Hooper area, 40th South at 5500 West. Business owners get schooled on the ABCs of asphalt and concrete before fall. GoPave Utah can educate you on getting the most life out of your parking lot. Visit GoPaveUtah.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Dry and hot in northern Utah. High today 101, tomorrow 103. Thunderstorms could also bring a risk of flash flooding in the central and southern parts of the state. Right now we're at 96 degrees with partly cloudy skies. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, the headline late last week, of course, was a bad jobs report that was released on Friday. And, of course, sell-off started to dominate Wall Street and the stock market plummeted. And continues. We're actually down a little over 1,000 points, 1,049 down right now. But I want to get underneath that particular headline and kind of do the math, try to do the analytics, and what does this actually mean, especially as it relates to the R word, recession, and how that might imply and impact what happens coming up in November. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Under the headline of a stock market that is way down today, and a lot of hand-wringing going on because this will have presidential politics impact, to be sure. But did you know there's a rule underneath it that might give us some indication as to where we're actually headed? Eric Boehm, of course, is a reporter at Reason, covers economic policy, trade policy, and elections, and all of those are coming together in this very moment. And Eric, happy Monday to all.
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure about Happy Monday, but certainly Monday.
It is Monday.
Yeah.
It may be a double Monday. So you referenced today, obviously, the jobs report that came out Friday was not what anybody was hoping for. And again, I don't care what your politics are. That's not a good number. That's not helpful. But describe for us the rule and what we might be looking at, and then how we might navigate that in the weeks ahead.
Sure, yeah. So some numbers here. I apologize for throwing a bunch of numbers at your listeners, but the jobs report that came out on Friday showed that unemployment in July had ticked upwards to 4.3%. When you look at the past 3 months, which is important for this thing we're going to talk about in just a second, over the past 3 months, unemployment rate has risen to an average of a little over 4.1%. And that is significantly higher. That is quite a bit higher than the lowest 3-month rolling average that we had over the past year, which was last summer, around 3.6%. So the quick and dirty version of this is that from last summer to this summer, unemployment rate has jumped from about 3.6% up to over 3.1%. And that is a big enough jump to trigger something known as the SOM rule. Not really a rule, but a sort of historical trend that has popped up in the months leading up to recessions. Every recession, actually, since 1970 has been there's been this kind of early warning signal given by this jump in unemployment of at least this much between the 3-month rolling average at one point in the year to the 3-month rolling average in the next point. And so that is, if you believe this historical trend to be an accurate predictor of recessions, that is the thing that is sounding alarm bells. And certainly you're seeing in the stock market today some of the consequences, I think, of that threshold being triggered on Friday.
Yeah, no question about that. In fact, you pointed this out in your piece, and I thought it was a nice effort at some mental gymnastics by Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, saying that he called the SOM rule a statistical regularity, but not a rule, meaning that it's not inevitable. It doesn't have to happen, but it is a statistical regularity as opposed to a rule. And again, I think trying to shift the dynamic of all of that is just an interesting thing. And so walk us through kind of what comes next. I know some people have been wringing their hands today saying, oh, they should have cut interest rates or they could have done this or that. What do you expect to see in terms of any kind of action, or is this just one of those we're going to have to let it play for a few days and see where it starts to shake out?
Yeah, I think we really don't know yet at this point. That's the lame answer to your last question there. But I think you're right. You make a good point about Jerome Powell. And I mean, look, so much of everything to do with the stock market, right, especially is about what people think is going to happen ends up just becoming true, right? There's like self-fulfilling prophecies. If everybody believes that we're in good times, then the good times keep coming. Everybody thinks a recession is on the way. Sometimes that is enough to, as you're seeing today, trigger a pretty significant shift in the wrong direction. So obviously nobody wants to be the person out there, saying, obviously this means the recession is coming. So I think that's what Powell was doing there. But I think it's interesting that Claudia Sahm, who is the economist for whom the SOM rule is named, the person who discovered this historical indicator, and not all that long ago, this is a relatively recent discovery, but she was going back and looking at recessions since the middle of the 20th century, and she found this pattern and published it in 2019. The Wall Street Journal asked her about just before the jobs report came out on Friday, hey, do you think we're headed for a recession? And she kind of said the same thing that Powell did of like, look, this is it's a historical trend. It doesn't mean anything. Calling it the SOM rule. I think it's like the Pirates of the Caribbean series. If your listeners are familiar with that, right? It's like the pirate code. It's really more of guidelines. It's like the SOM rule. It's really more of a guideline than anything else. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't trigger anything. When she was writing in 2019, she was arguing when she discovered this and published the paper about this, she was arguing that governments should treat this as a trigger for enacting stimulus and other responses to head off a coming recession. But of course, we don't have those policies in place. So this doesn't actually mean anything. It doesn't pull any triggers. It doesn't cause any changes in government policy. But clearly it does have some effect on the stock market. Clearly, people have been paying attention.
Yeah. Well, now let's get to the intersection of all of your work, and that is between economic policy, trade policy, and elections. I think this is interesting. I think probably the most done, redone, and undone set of predictions over the last couple of years has been soft landing, hard landing, recession word, transitory, all of those things, trying to spin all of this. And obviously when it comes to the American people and American voters in particular, the money matters. It is about the economy. And so how do you see this playing out, especially in the backdrop of, I think Vice President Harris is trying to have a good day in the next 24 hours to unload and introduce a new vice presidential nominee. How does that all play out? And what are you trying to keep your eye on as the politics start to intersect with the economics?
I was actually just texting with a friend of mine about this exact question of well, do you think she'll delay the announcement for a day or two if it seems like the stock market's bad? We don't, I haven't heard anything yet officially one way or the other, but I do think that's an interesting political dynamic here. I think I was on this program. This was probably almost 2 years ago at this point, right, when the kind of COVID recovery started, and we went through that period where we had 1 quarter of negative growth, and then we had a second consecutive quarter that was just barely in the positives. And there was this same debate, Boyd, that we're having right now of are we in a recession? Are we not in a recession? Other economic indicators, including the unemployment rate at that point, looked really good. And so at that point in time, there was this same debate of okay, well, it's 2 consecutive quarters of almost negative growth. Is that a bad sign? But maybe the rest of the economy is strong. And now it's kind of the other way around. Right now, the unemployment rate has ticked up. It's triggered the Somme rule. That sets off alarm bells that says, hey, recession is coming. But GDP growth has actually been up the last 2 quarters. So we wouldn't get into 2 negative quarters of GDP growth. It would have to be the 3rd and 4th quarter of the year. So you would be in early 2025 before that's the typical standard measure of a recession. We would be well post-election before we would hit that threshold, if that's the threshold you care about. And then again, that's not an official measure either. That's just the back of the envelope kind of way that we tend to think about recessions as happening. So yeah, it's really interesting. We're going to be going through. I think we're still sorting out some kind of wonky monetary issues coming out of COVID. We're still dealing. We don't really fully understand. I don't think anybody fully understands the effect of the now $35 trillion national debt. What effect that will have on unemployment and inflation going forward. So yeah, we're in a little bit of uncharted territory here, and having it all happen during a presidential election is certainly unprecedented in modern American history, for sure.
Yeah, it will definitely be a buckle up your seatbelt, tighten up your chin strap, rough waters ahead, and possibly a few airbag deployments along the way as we try to move this all through. And I think the one thing about the American people is they will focus on how it feels in terms of what's happening around their kitchen table, regardless of what label gets applied or not applied, or an exception to the rule gets declared by one political party or the other. I think ultimately this is going to be about the economy. I think Bill Clinton was always right on that, and we'll see how it actually plays out coming up as we move it all forward. Eric Boehm, as always, reporter at Reason, and one of our favorites on the show to help us get into the meat of it and underneath the hood of the headlines to understand how we really connect the dots. Eric, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Boyd. Still hoping for that soft landing. Let's try to get there.
That's right. That's right.
Thanks so much, Travis.
We're looking for Goldilocks in the middle, and at least on the soft landing category. And that is the hope. And hopefully the rule is wrong this time around. And perhaps maybe the Fed chair got it right in saying that while it is a statistical regularity, it is not a hard, fast rule. I think everyone is kind of hoping and praying that is the case. But we're going to continue to see the spidey sense, the gut sense of the American people about the economy is usually right, because it's not just how they're doing, it's how their neighbors are doing and how their community's doing. And so underneath the headlines, and again, we're continuing to watch a significant sell-off of the markets today. The Dow is down over 1,000 points. This will have an impact on the conversation and the debate as it relates to the presidential race and other races down ballot. And we'll continue to help you connect the dots and make the news make sense. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. It's been a crazy summer.
The shooter managed to get onto a roof.
Biden has already endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris.
It's a hot weather stretch. The Olympics are coming back to Utah.
And no hint of slowing down. Tim and Amanda get you caught up on what happened overnight from 5 to 9. Dave and Debbie and Boyd Matheson take a deep dive on the day's biggest stories from 9 to 3. And Jeff Kaplan gives you his trademark Minute of News for your drive home.
We have you covered
all summer
on KSL News Radio.
Right now is the perfect time to evaluate your retirement options with Hercules Credit Union and Solitude Wealth Management. Take advantage of a free consultation right now. That's what they do at Hercules Credit Union. It's always about growing stronger together, giving you confidence in your path financially. Because for Hercules Credit Union, you're never just a transaction. It's all about the relationship and about helping you achieve your goals. You can check out their locations in Taylorsville, Harriman, and Riverton. And you can always find Hercules online at HerculesCU.com. Also in July, if you open up a new account, you'll get $150 deposited into your new checking account when you get direct deposit. Another way that Hercules Credit Union is growing stronger together with you. They've been doing it since 1946. Become part of that story. Become part of that family at Hercules at HerculesCU.com.
We have 5 kids, 2 dogs, and we've bought 4 houses in the last 12 years. So our realtors helped us through the complexities of buying a house, the legalities of different property rights, right-of-ways, building concerns, or even ordinances, right?
If we were to try to do this on our own, we would have made a lot of financial mistakes. The realtor is now part of our family. She's who helps our family get to wherever our next chapter is.
Discover how a realtor can make a real difference at myrealtorstory.com.
This Friday from 10 to 1, the movie show comes to Sound Sleep Medical. But first, take the time to learn about a better night's rest. Sound Sleep Medical delivers oral appliance therapy that treats sleep apnea without the use of CPAP machines. They're professionally fit, warranted, and covered by most major medical insurance. End the days of a poor night's sleep. Sound Sleep Medical will help. Call Sound Sleep Medical at 801-716-8672 for details. Sound Sleep Medical.
The light is fading, your hands are sore, and the last tool has been put away. Now is the time to feel the satisfaction that comes with a job well done. But when you get your tools from Harbor Freight, something about the job feels a little different. Your wallet. Because we believe that everyone deserves hardworking tools at hardworking prices. And that's what we have here. So, whatever you do, do it for less at Harbor Freight.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues? Who are you? Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Jeff Kaplan. When I was a kid, my parents got me a subscription to Newsweek magazine. I would devour every page into the night. And to this day, I sit on my iPad looking for stories for my Minute of News, flesh out our coverage, and I get to share the news with you.
Jeff Kaplan's Afternoon News, 3 to 7 on KSL News Radio.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bonas. First, Utah's governor is being asked to stop the execution of Tabor Onhoney set for later this week. Second, police in Sarasota, Florida are using kayaks and whatever else they can find to rescue people from flooded homes after Hurricane Debbie. And third, the stock markets were slipping backwards again this afternoon after a major down day. 96 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. As we continue to try to divide that rage from the reason, we recognize that the words have meaning and the meaning matters. And sometimes they get thrown around in pretty sloppy ways, in ways that incite, I-N-C-I-T-E, rather than providing insight, I-N-S-I-G-H-T. And in no realm is that happening more or louder, it seems, than as it relates to what's happening in the Middle East. And so I want to have a conversation about a lot of the reporting that's going on, the way things are being framed, and regardless about how you feel about the conflict itself, we have to get to how we talk about these kinds of things. And someone who's doing an extraordinary job with that, Kevin Williamson, national correspondent at the Dispatch, based in Virginia, and has a great piece in the Dispatch about Israel isn't risking a regional war. So listen carefully in all this as we go through. And Kevin, welcome back to the show.
Hi, always a pleasure to be here.
So let's dive into this a little bit. Of course, the words that get thrown about a lot is that either Benjamin Netanyahu is risking a regional war or he's doing this in his interest. Just break it down for us as you look at and assess where things really are.
Yeah, I was writing about this one particular headline in the New York Times about Netanyahu, quote unquote, risking a regional war, or sometimes you'll see headlines referring to the possibility of escalation or the risk or the threat of a regional war in the Middle East. And every time I see these, I kind of stop and scratch my head a little bit and think, well, the Israelis are being attacked by forces backed by the Iranian government. They're being attacked out of Yemen. They're being attacked out of Lebanon. How are they not already in a regional war? It seems like the regional war everyone's talking about risking has been going on for some time, and the Israelis are trying to win that regional war. And I don't think they're so much worried about risking one when it seems that one's already upon them.
Yeah, I mean, that's clearly that is the case. And when you look at the dynamics of all of that in terms of what Iran is doing and what it's doing through Hamas, through the Houthis, and through Hezbollah, clearly a regional war is going on in some way, shape, or form. And so how should we start having the conversation in terms of what should we be assessing, what should we be looking at, and how do we actually start to chart a path to be helpful?
Well, one of the problems we have in American political conversation is we're very focused on the United States, and we tend to read the rest of the world through the prism of American partisan divisions. And so Israel has a problem right now in that its prime minister is Benjamin Netanyahu, who is a representative of the right-wing coalition in Israel. And now, irrespective of what you think about Netanyahu, and there are some things about his history and his administration that have been less than admirable, certainly. Holding our attitudes toward Israel hostage because we have a government that's of the left-wing party and they have a government of the right-wing party would be an extremely foolish thing to do, but that often happens.
Yeah.
We will read our relationship, conservatives will read our relationship with Canada, for instance, in a difficult way because the Canadians have a lefty government and they want a right-wing government. Our relationship with Israel ought to transcend questions of the partisan identification of its government at any given time. We can have a good, productive, fruitful relationship with them, whether they've got a left-wing government or a right-wing government. But Americans, particularly progressives right now, have such strong feelings about the Israeli right, partly because it's got a religious character, which they're uncomfortable with, partly just because Netanyahu is a much more familiar figure than a lot of other world leaders, have this really difficult time dealing with the Israeli question because it's hard for them to get past Netanyahu. This hasn't always been the case in the United States. George W. Bush was a member of a conservative party. Tony Blair was a member of a Labor Party. They had a very fruitful, productive working relationship. Barack Obama was a member of the left-wing party in the United States. He had a good relationship with Angela Merkel, who was leader of a right-wing party in Germany and an important figure in broader European politics. So it is possible to have this cross-partisan international cooperation. In fact, it should be easier because it shouldn't really matter to us very much. A lot of these domestic issues that Netanyahu is fighting with the Israeli left about. And on the particular question of the war with Hamas, there's a great deal of unity in the Israeli polity. Left and right are much more on the same page than you might expect, and more than they probably would be in the American context. Although immediately after 9/11, we had a pretty strong consensus on doing something.
Yeah, this is such an important thing for all of us to put in that it really shouldn't matter when we're doing this international work. It shouldn't matter if one side's further to the left or further to the right. We got to get to the interests of the country, allies, alliances, regional issues that really should transcend all of that. And sometimes I think it becomes hard for us, as you mentioned, sometimes we get so focused on the political personality, and whether that's a Benjamin Netanyahu that you can rightly say, look what he did or what he tried to do in terms of the court and the balance of power. You can go after that all day, again, left, right, or center. And then you have dealing with, Hamas, which is a completely different thing. And then you've got Gaza and the Palestinian people. How do we get to that better space where we can do, as you described in the piece, look at these international things in a little different way than just the personality politics?
Well, we've got to do a better job as citizens of trying to understand what's actually going on. One of the things I noticed, because I write a lot about economic issues, is that American progressives will often speak in very, very glowing terms about Sweden. And what you'll find out if you talk to them for 5 minutes is they have no idea what's happened in Sweden since the 1990s. Sweden is actually very capitalistic, in some ways very libertarian kind of country. Its welfare state is not what it was back in the 70s. It's got a very, very trade-oriented free enterprise economy. And, it's done a lot of things that American conservatives would look at over the years and say, well, maybe that'd actually be a good thing for us to do in terms of trying to decentralize power, trying to disperse some of the responsibilities for the welfare state, trying to get their finances a little more in order. But they don't know anything about Sweden, right? So you can talk about Sweden and think it's this sort of, thing from the era of wearing socks and sandals back in the late 70s and early 80s. And we do that a lot. Americans, there are a lot of Americans on the right who really like Viktor Orban and his administration in Hungary. And I think they would like it a lot less if they knew more about it.
I think that's so important. I love one of your closing lines in your piece at The Dispatch, and everyone need to check that out at thedispatch.com. You say, partisan blinders and language that obscures meaning make it difficult to see the plain facts. I think we should have that chiseled in granite, and all of us place that above our computer screens, because I think that's where we often get lost.
So much of our political conversation, especially on social media, is really designed and intended to obscure meaning and obscure communication. Orwell was writing about this way back in, Politics in English Language in, I guess, the 1940s, was it, when he wrote that? This is an old method of propaganda, of, flooding the zone, as it were, with either meaningless communication or misinformation or stuff that's based on assumptions of bad faith or malintent on the part of your interlocutors. And this is just a way to keep a real conversation from happening. So if we could do what your advice is, which is try to be a little less possessed by rage in the conversation, a little more open to talking and trying to understand what other people are actually about, and also understanding that the U.S. relationship with Israel, like the U.S. relationship with every other country, has aspects to it that go beyond left-right domestic politics in the United States. We have long-term, real economic and geopolitical interests there that we need to secure and act in the interest of.
Fantastic perspective, as always. Kevin Williamson, national correspondent at The Dispatch. Kevin, love your work, and thanks for helping us elevate the conversation today. Great perspective.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, again, that's Kevin Williamson, national correspondent at The Dispatch. Check out his piece at thedispatch.com because, again, when we put on the partisan blinders, it often obscures the meaning, and that makes it difficult to see the plain facts and to have the elevated conversation. And that's up to you, and that's up to me, and that's why we continue to have the conversation here on Inside Sources. We'll be right back.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour: a software glitch caused an error message in 2 counties during the recount of ballots for the 2nd District Republican primary. Tooele County Clerk Tracy Shaw says it took a little detective work to figure out just what went wrong.
We did report to our election vendor. They said that can happen sometimes and kind of provided some direction to get past that.
She says that led them to reevaluate 55 ballots with the tally problem. The results, though, stayed the same as they had been. We're still waiting for an update from the Washington County Clerk's office on the recount. Weber County search and rescue teams are trying to find a man who disappeared while he was swimming in Willard Bay. They say 51-year-old Robert Mittendorf was swimming near a boat with his son on Saturday. The son swam back to the boat to get a life jacket for his dad, but by then he'd gone under the water. Several different agencies are helping with that operation. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. A weaker than expected jobs report getting the blame for a steep decline in stocks today, though some economists say it really wasn't that bad. A drop in Japan's stock market could also be responsible. The Dow Jones average lost more than 3% so far today. Looking at those stocks right now, the Dow down 1,079 points right now. The NASDAQ is down 609. S&P 500 down 164. And our KSL weather. It's hot again today and tomorrow. That's next. KSL News Time, 1:31.
News doesn't just mean information or dates.
It's the story of our local history being told in real time.
Be a part of the story. This is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
We hope to be a part of your story. We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
This is Jay Broadbent from Alpine Home Medical. I'm excited to let you know we're currently having a summer sale on power scooters. As we celebrate the spirit of freedom and independence, we want to make sure you have the chance to experience it. We have a wide range of power scooters designed to enhance your mobility, and they're all available at a discounted price. These special offers only come around every couple of years, and once they're gone, they're gone. Come visit us at any of our 11 locations to take advantage of these fantastic deals, or you can browse our selection of discounted scooters on our website. We're committed to providing the 5-star experience. We can't wait to assist you in finding the perfect power scooter. Visit us online at alpinehomemedical.com. That's alpinehomemedical.com.
Cashback is not available on gas in New Jersey and Wisconsin.
Billy, your gas light's on. We need to stop and fill up.
No way, Jen. Gas around here is too expensive. We can make it a little further.
Billy, listen to your big sister. You don't need to drive all over searching for the lowest gas prices. Do what I do and use Upside.
Upside?
Do you live under a rock, Billy? Upside is the hottest cashback app out there. It's free to download, and you get real cash back for every gallon of gas you buy. I use it all the time, and I've already made around $200.
You can make that kind of cash back just for buying the gas you have to buy anyway?
Yes, I'm looking at the Upside app now, and there's a gas station at the next exit offering 25 cents per gallon cash back.
Okay, I'm stopping to download Upside and fill up my tank. Download the free Upside app now to earn cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code COIN25 to get an extra 25 cents per gallon on your first tank. You can cash out anytime right to your bank, to PayPal, or a gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code COIN25 for a 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code COIN25 for a 25 cents per gallon bonus.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
Right now, Valley Freeway traffic looks good, no problems there, but emergency crews are on the scene of a crash with possible injuries involving a motorcycle, 90th South and 2700 West. This is the place, Heritage Park, the place to learn, explore, and enjoy Utah history. Perfect for weddings, reunions, birthdays, celebrations of life, and more. Plan today at thisistheplace.org. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Dry and hot in northern Utah with a high today of 101, tomorrow 103, and we could see some thunderstorms in the central and southern parts of the state, bringing a risk of flash flooding. Right now, 99 degrees, partly cloudy skies. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com for Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson. On Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, the global trend of declining birth rates has sparked a contentious debate about the future of human populations and societal well-being as a whole. Often framed as a conservative concern, the potential consequences of population decline extend far beyond political boundaries and should be something we're all interested in and trying to figure out. Dr. Victor Kumar is a philosophy professor at Boston University, writes frequently about morality and progress, has a great piece in the New York Times talking about population growth isn't a progressive issue. It should be. And joins us on the line. Victor, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
So let's break this down just a little bit. You framed this so perfectly in terms of who kind of owns the issue when it comes to population growth. But give us some of the reality and help us start to reframe the conversation, how we have the right conversation that moves us all forward.
Yeah. So I think for a long time, people have thought that the problem is catastrophic overpopulation and that the Earth is going to run out of resources and food. But what experts project is that global population will peak in about 50 or 60 years and then fall afterwards. And the people that have been sounding the alarm about this are conservatives, are people like J.D. Vance and Elon Musk. And I think the consequence of that has been that people on the left have thought, this is something conservatives care about. It's not really an issue.
Yeah, and I think it's so interesting, and we see this in so many different places. We often see things about the environment itself as being a left issue as opposed to a right issue, so conservatives have not been talking a lot about it, although many are starting to shift the game there. So let's talk about how we actually have a different kind of conversation when it comes to that. What should we be looking for?
Yeah, well, I think progressives need to begin thinking about their own values and the way that a declining population can threaten those values. So, progressives care about the well-being of everyone. They care about social equality. And the problem is that if population in this country and across the globe begins to decline, especially if it begins to decline quickly, there just won't be enough young people around to make our society work the way that it's supposed to. So if there aren't enough young people, then there's not enough people around to care for older people and economically support them. There's not enough taxpayers. There's not enough healthcare workers either. So I don't think we need to, progressives need to, reimagine their values in any way. They just need to think about how their own things that they care about will be impacted by population decline.
Yeah, I love the way you frame that in the context of some of the things down the road, whether that's social services or safety net programs, a lot of those things that are dependent, and even those like Social Security, that's kind of a pay-forward model. If you don't have any young people coming in and paying those taxes and engaging in the economy, the whole system kind of breaks down.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's just the most obvious problem that would ensue as a result of population decline. There's other problems that are as serious but maybe more uncertain. One of them is that young people are really the drivers of new progressive ideas. They're also the drivers of innovations in art and music and literature and other valuable parts of culture. And so I think the world in which there are a declining amount of young people is a world that's culturally stagnant and maybe morally stagnant as well. People think that they already live in a gerontocracy. Well, just wait.
Yeah, I love the framing of that. That if we really lose that young sector of society, it impacts everything from the creativity and the arts to the again the fabric of society, the civil society. Give us a sense in terms of other things. You talk a little bit in your piece about some of the creative ways in terms of policy that can support families, that can support fertility rates rising, and give us a little sense of that side of the spectrum.
Yeah. So I think the problem is fairly clear. It's a lot less clear what the solutions might be. And I think one of the things that we have to do as progressives is begin to care about this issue and begin to talk about it. Progressive politicians need to care about it. Progressive scientists and researchers need to care about it, so we can start thinking about solutions. Because I think actually it's really not clear what the solution might be. I mean, one thing that seems plausible, given that so many people choose not to have children because they can't afford it or they worry about being able to afford it, is expanding social services, like expanding government-funded childcare or parental leave. And the problem with that is that it doesn't seem to have much of an effect. So countries that have really generous welfare programs for parents still have birth rates that are below replacement. So Sweden is the main example. Sweden's birth rate is below replacement and actually isn't much different from the U.S.'s. So I think people need to get more creative and think about even more expansive subsidies for parents. France is one country that hasn't seen the same decline. Its birth rate has declined, but not as much as its neighboring countries. and it may be because of their very generous tax incentives that parents have there, which scale up with the number of children they have. But it may be that we just haven't thrown enough money at this problem yet. It may be that we want to look beyond policy solutions and also think about the ways in which our culture can change, changing the way people think about their careers, their workplaces. So we do need to do a lot of work to figure out what solutions might work and try to implement them and see what happens.
I want to go back just in our last few minutes here. I just keep thinking about how you frame that in terms of the impact of not having that next generation coming up and the impact that it has on culture, the art, morals, and social progress. Unpack that a little bit for us.
Yeah, sure. That's what I've written the most about in my career, moral or social progress. And, I think in most kinds of social progress that affect various identity groups, like affect women, people of color, LGBTQ people, what's often happened is that younger people have changed their minds more quickly than older generations. In some case, progress happens not because people change their mind, but because young people grow up without inheriting the bigotry of people older than them. So, that's clearly been the case when it comes to homophobia and transphobia. People who are younger are much less homophobic and transphobic than people who are older. And so the worry is that if you have a society in which there are, there's proportionally fewer and fewer young people every generation, then that means that that threatens moral stagnation, because there won't be enough people to disinherit the bigotry of their elders, and we'll be stuck in a situation where our morals and our politics are being dictated, even more so than now, by people who grew up in previous decades that didn't afford them the opportunity to acquire progressive beliefs about race and gender and sexuality.
That is fascinating stuff. This is a fantastic piece. Check this out at the New York Times today. It says population growth isn't a progressive issue. It should be. But underneath the hood and the headline of all of this, there are some really important things that, regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum, these are conversations that we need to get to in this society. And really thrilled and very grateful. Dr. Victor Kumar, philosophy professor at Boston University, has joined us on the line. And Dr. Kumar, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to having you back and continuing the conversation. This is crucial stuff.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it.
All right. Again, that's Dr. Victor Kumar joining us from Boston University today. And when it comes to population growth, that is a left, right, and center issue. And not just on the economic front. We often talk about it in terms of Social Security and who's going to pay for that, because it's all based on the younger people coming up and paying taxes. But there's also impacts in terms of culture and arts, morals, and social progress. Those are things we've got to get to if we're going to have a real conversation about any of this. All right, we'll step aside for a quick break. More Inside Sources coming up next here on KSL News Radio. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Want to keep your gas-powered engines running like new? Stable's proprietary formulas are proven by third-party testing to outperform the competition in keeping fuel fresh, preventing corrosion, and cleaning the entire fuel system. With Stable, you can have confidence you are doing the right thing for your engine's long-term health. Just pour into your gas can or fuel tank, then top off with fresh fuel. At every fill-up or when you store, start with Stable. Available where fuel additives are sold.
Did you know your skin is the largest organ of your body? Huh? That's why you should shower with Old Spice Super Hydration Body Wash instead of plain old bar soap. Love your skin by super hydrating it with vitamin B3 and glorious notes of vanilla and shea. Did you know that my super hydrated skin is the second largest organ of my body? The first is my heart. Old Spice. Men have skin too. Old Spice Super Hydration Body Wash. 24/7 renewing moisture. With daily use.
KSL offers the best daily newsletter in the state. It's the 3 things you need to know. Every weekday, we deliver quality and relevant content to your inbox. No ads, no spam, Just the 3 things you need to know to be informed about the world around you. Subscribe today. Visit KSLNewsRadio.com or text the word INBOX to 57500. That's INBOX to 57500.
I have had both friends and family members that through the years have suffered from arthritis and the joint pain that comes because of it in knees and hips and in your back or anywhere else. And they've wanted to avoid surgery at all costs because of the downtime and the uncertainty of whether it would actually even bring them relief. Isn't it great to live in a time when we have these new ways to treat that pain emerging, like the cellular therapies that you've heard me talk about from QC Kinetics? They have helped people just like you every day with advanced regenerative medicine that actually accelerates your own body's healing properties, revitalizes your joints, and gets you moving again. Why give up the things you love with the people that you love? You're going to find the QC Kinetics medical professionals right now in Mill Creek, Provo, and Bountiful, and they're offering free consultations. 385-766-1987. Call them today. 385-766-1987. That's 385-766-1987.
Need a ride? Call Utah Transit Authority's referral line. This dedicated phone number is a resource created specifically for individuals with disabilities, aging adults over the age of 60, and veterans who need temporary assistance finding specialized transportation solutions. Simply give us a call at 801-287-2870. Leave your name and phone number, and a UTA representative will get back to you soon. If you're facing ongoing day-to-day transportation challenges, the UTA referral line is here to help. From medical appointments to the grocery store, we're here to get you where you need to go. Please call 801-287-2870. This dedicated phone number is a resource created specifically for individuals with disabilities, aging adults over the age of 60, and veterans who need temporary assistance finding specialized transportation solutions. 801-287-2870. That's 801-287-2870.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Social Security is with you through life's journey from birth to retirement. As your life changes year to year, so do your needs. For over 80 years, Social Security has helped to meet your needs and is committed to improving access to the services that make a difference in your life. Today, you can verify your earnings, estimate your future benefits, apply for retirement, manage your benefits, and even change your address, all from the comfort of your home. Social Security's online services help put you in control with secure access to your information anytime, anywhere, allowing you to spend more time with family, friends, or simply just enjoying the day. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow. See what you can do online at socialsecurity.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Mom and Dad used to argue about everything, especially about Dad's drinking. It drove me crazy. It got so bad, I couldn't do my homework. I couldn't concentrate. I absolutely refused to let any of my friends come to our house for any reason. I would have been humiliated if anyone found out how much my dad drank and how loud my mom screamed at him. My family went from totally crazy to quiet, calm, and even peaceful. The only thing that happened is my mom started going to Al-Anon family groups. Her relationship with my dad really changed. I asked Mom if she would take me to her Al-Anon meetings or to Alateen. I wanted to see if I could have a better relationship with my dad. I'm sure glad I did. If someone's drinking troubling you, you might be surprised at what you can learn in an Al-Anon or Alateen family group from people just like you. Call 1-888-4-ALANON or go to alanon.org.
Let me ask you a question. You have a best friend? How big would it shock you if somebody told you that your best friend just killed somebody?
911, what's your emergency? There's someone on every line saying they kidnapped my son and they're demanding $500,000.
On September 12th, 1995, 12-year-old McKay Everett disappeared from his home in Conroe, Texas. It was a crime that shocked the community because the suspect was so unlikely, so unexpected.
former high-ranking police official. He'd run for sheriff at one point.
Law enforcement personnel were pretty much split down the middle over whether or not he actually did this.
And to this day, McKay's mother, Paulette, still feels that justice was never truly served.
I've asked myself so many times, what in the world happened?
Ransom is available now. Listen at ransompodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, county clerks say software glitches have been ironed out in the recount of primary election ballots in Utah's 2nd District. Second, search teams still trying to find a missing swimmer in Willard Bay. And third, stock markets fell through the floor today, with the Dow down more than 1,000 points. 99 degrees right now, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Nadia Williams joins us today from Ohio. She is the book review editor for the online magazine Current, also edits the Arena blog, and as I said, just a fabulous piece in Providence. And Nadia, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I read your piece this morning. I thought we have to track her down, and our Cracker Jack staff pulled that off. But break that down for us. Your piece was not just one of those, kids today aren't learning how to read and they're not reading anymore. It's so much more than that. Break that down for us.
Yeah, well, and I'm an ancient historian, so for me it's always like those ancient connections, right? Yeah. The birthplace of the Olympics, when the Olympics were getting started, we're talking about an oral culture, a culture where people for fun, like what did they do for fun, the days before TV and all that? Well, people would get together for sometimes like 24-hour marathons reciting poetry. Like you would listen to a professional bard recite Homer's Iliad or Odyssey. Those books that today, like so many people would just not pick up for fun. Of course, they were not meant to be read. They were meant to be listened to. So you would have these incredible bards reciting this for hours on end. And that was like the highlight of your season, when the bards showed up in town to recite these things, perhaps as part of a religious festival. So those were oral cultures. So in an oral culture, before there even existed a Greek alphabet, but even after that, when literacy was just a few people knew how to read, before then, people just had this incredible memory where you could listen to things and remember them. And then you would talk about it with friends, like you had this common language. And then when you have writing, so historians talk about this oral culture, so that's like the age of Homer and, the early days of the Olympics in the Greek world, where you have these great festivals, which, by the way, had their own poetry associated with them. But anyway, so then you get to written culture, 6th, 5th century BC on, and people still have this incredible memory because oral culture doesn't totally disappear, but over time, more people have the ability to read and record things. Well, so my concern, what I wrote this piece about, is how so many students today, looking especially at the college crisis, don't fit the characteristics of either an oral culture or a written culture.
Yeah, that is so fascinating to me, and I want to unpack just a couple of things as we go through this. One, just that whole idea of these 24-hour sessions. I mean, you want to talk about binge watching something 24 hours, but there's two components to that you brought out that I thought are so striking, and it made me really question myself, and that is attention span. I think most of us, because of what we get served up on social media, have the attention span of a goldfish, which I know is probably offensive to goldfishes. But then also memory is another key component of all of that. And clearly we're losing that space. And then you combine that with the with texting and emojis and all of that, and the written word is gone as well. So where does that leave us really in kind of a inability to even communicate with each other?
Yeah, and that's exactly my concern, that if you don't fit one or the other, you've lost it. And that's the question of, how do we fight back? I don't want to just, end on this depressing note of, well, that's it. It's the end of civilization.
Game over. Yeah.
Yeah, stock up on cheesecake and, it's done. But my point is, there are things we can do. And for me, especially as a parent, a lot of it is things we do in the home. And so if you are a parent, there are things you can do with your children that are good not only for your children, for building their attention span and all that, but also like for you. So I noticed my youngest right now is 5, and we do really long book reads as a family. Like we do a lot of family read alouds. I mean, that's the sort of thing that is really good for the kids, obviously, but we don't think about how good it is for us.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, I love that. A read aloud. I think every household could use some of those, regardless of how old, especially for the parents and for the teenagers. I think also so important. You also just frame so powerfully just how important words are. We always say, words have meaning, the meaning matter, and it connects us to each other. It connects us to the dignity, humanity, and divinity of those around us. And whether it's in a family or whether it's in a neighborhood, in a community, talk to us a little bit about some other things that we can do to make sure, whether written or spoken, that we're using our words in ways that does connect us.
Well, so much of this is relational, like both in the family but also in the community. So I feel like we're still recovering from COVID, the days when we lost like a whole year of relationships, like getting together for dinner, conversations. Like how many conversations with people with flesh and blood do you have on a regular basis where you just sit around a table and like eat together and talk, whether about books or just about anything? So many of those connections. And again, that builds attention span. So the complaints how like kids can't go through dinner without pulling out their cell phones. Like, well, have a wonderful dinner without any electronics, where everybody has to listen to each other.
Oh, it's so powerful. I took a group of 25 teenage boys out into the wilderness for a little camping, not really wilderness. But we
Did
got
everybody come back?
Everyone came back, which is extraordinary in and of itself. But the thing that they appreciated the most was that we had them check their cell phones in on the first day, and they loved it. They absolutely loved that. Well, I hope this is the beginning of many conversations, Nadia, that we can have. I love your writing. I love the way you're approaching this, because I think both that oral storytelling, our written language, and then how it actually connects us to one another is a crucial conversation that we have to get back to in so many different places and spaces. And I think you're going to be an important guide for us as we continue through that process. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
That was my conversation with Nadia Williams, and it is so vital that when we think about this oral language, written language, and the fact that we're losing so much of that in our social media world today, where everything is just a quick text or a TikTok video, we're often missing the deeper conversations. I just had an extraordinary group of students walk into the studio as we were listening to Nadia from Iraq. And brilliant minds, brilliant questions. And one of the things we talked about is just being surprised, staying radically curious, and not taking those assumptions. Those assumptions always get you into trouble. And I love that these students are here learning. And that's the key for all of us. And the best way to do the learning is to set the electronics aside and to engage in real deep dialogue. Get past the talking points, get past the headlines, and make sure that you're actually getting underneath. And then with that radical curiosity, and I would add a dose of humility as a real key component. We were talking with the students about if you can just always question, one, my assumption might be wrong, or my idea might be wrong. That's a tough one for a lot of us to admit. But if we can accept that from a place of humility, then we can get to the elevated space where we find the commonality, where we can see the dignity in our differences, where we can see the humanity in each other, and ultimately get to the divinity that connects all of us together. Well, that wraps up hour number 1 of Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. We're going to step aside for some top-of-the-hour news, but don't go anywhere. We got a big hour number 2 coming up next. Stick around. We'll be right back.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. The Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office investigating a deadly shooting on the Mount Olympus trailhead this weekend. They responded around 4:30 Saturday morning to reports of gunfire. Found 18-year-old Naud Welde had died from multiple wounds. Detectives asking the public for any tips or information they might have. Salt Lake City police say a traffic stop near 9th South and Main Street turned up more than 600 fentanyl pills, as well as cash and meth and more. They arrested William Bankert, also again seized cash and other drugs. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. U.S. stocks taking a tumble to start the week. Markets down about 3% this afternoon, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average losing about 1,000 points. Caleb Brune, the chief economist at Morning Consult, says many investors are still spooked by Friday's job numbers.
We're definitely heading towards a cooler place. But if you look at really just those top-line statistics that measure where we are as an economy, the levels are not looking dangerous.
And Brune adds the fundamentals of the U.S. economy remain strong. Looking at your money right now, the Dow Jones average down 1,033 points on the day as we approach the close of trading. NASDAQ down 576 points. The S&P 500 down 160. And our KSL weather, very hot today and tomorrow. That's next. KSL News Time 2:01.
You know what's great about KSL's traffic coverage? Trained traffic reporters and real listeners.
Trading information and making the commute safer and faster for everyone.
Every 10 minutes on the 9s, we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
At Fisher Investments, we may seem like other money managers, but we're different.
What makes you so different than the rest of us?
We ensure clients receive unparalleled service at every step of the relationship.
Tell me more.
Our investment counselors focus on service over sales, prioritizing clients' needs.
How do you make money?
We don't sell any commission-based products. We have a simple management fee based on the value of our clients' portfolio. So we do better when our clients do better.
What about client portfolios?
We get to know each client, their finances, family, health, lifestyle, and more, and then we tailor a portfolio based on their specific goals and needs.
Your clients really come first then, huh?
Yes, we make them a top priority. Our goal is helping them achieve a comfortable retirement.
Wow, maybe we are different.
At Fisher Investments, we're clearly different. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com.
Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
My wife and I always loved doing everything together. Jiu-jitsu, kayaking, and intimacy was always on point. It was around my early 30s when I noticed a downward trend. Watching a lot of TV, putting on weight, and just full of self-doubt. I had tried another men's clinic with disappointing results. It's the personalized treatment I receive at Revive Men's Health that has been the complete game changer for me. I've got my energy and motivation back, I'm feeling stronger than I did in my 20s, and it made me a much better husband to my wife.
I'm Eric Ramos, healthcare provider at Revive Men's Health. If you're always feeling tired or moody, have a difficult time sleeping, or decreased libido, you may be suffering from low testosterone.
Book your free T-check and exam at Revive Men's Health, Salt Lake City. Call 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit ReviveMen'sHealth.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
We do have a crash reported in Murray, northbound I-15 at the I-215 junction. It's been moved to the shoulder. And Salt Lake City PD working an accident at 1300 South and 3rd West. Fill up your bucket list in Box Elder County. History, recreation, wildlife, excellent dining and shopping await you. Learn more at visitboxeldercounty.com. Sponsored by the Utah Office of Tourism. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Dry and hot in northern Utah. High today 101. Tomorrow 103. Thunderstorms could bring a risk of flash flooding in the central and southern parts of the state. 99 degrees and partly cloudy right now. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com for Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, as we look at a country that is diverse, pluralistic, America, of course, is diverse in so many ways, but especially in terms of religious belief and worship. For Christians across the country, the last 10 years have seen a nearly unprecedented shift in our country's culture, and really their place in that culture, I think, has been brought into question. So we want to get underneath the headlines of all of that and understand the role of evangelicals and others in the upcoming election. And in order to do that, we need to think again about what we think we know when it comes to virtue and strongman politics. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
We are really thrilled to have joining us back on the program Jake Meador. Of course, he's the editor-in-chief of Mere Orthodoxy, a media organization working for Christian renewal. And you may remember we had Jake on the program a little while back talking about the need for more connection, not less, more expectations, not less, when it comes to really reviving communities and organizations of faith, and I think just society in general. It was such a fascinating conversation. Jake has a piece in the Dispatch called After Virtue Came Strongman Politics, and I've been dying to have this conversation. And Jake, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, so let's start with a little look back, as you did in your piece at the Dispatch, and looking at where conservative Christians have been and what it has wrought.
Yeah, so the piece was basically my attempt to try and kind of make sense of what I've, in many ways, lived through over the last 10 years. I started with a book launch event that was held in Manhattan for Rod Dreher's The Benedict Option, and then basically surveyed how the coalition represented at that event has fractured over the last 7 years since the event was held.
Yeah, and so as you've watched that play out, and obviously there are a lot of things happening society-wise over the last decade, and of course it's led to some really interesting coalitions as it relates to people of faith and political parties and politicians in general. Kind of walk us through how you've seen that play out and how we should maybe rethink how we're navigating all of that.
Yeah, so the argument I make in the piece is that the group that kind of coalesced around the Benedict option and then later around Patrick Deneen's Why Liberalism Failed was a group at the time primarily concerned with virtue and how do we build communities that are strong enough to flourish in this environment. So as part of the setup here is the turn against traditional sex ethics that really dates back to Obergefell and the religious liberty fights in 2015. And initially there was a concern, how do we build communities of virtue strong enough to resist those trends? And then what starts to happen, I argue around 2019 with Sora Bamari's piece going after David French and First Things, is people start to assume, well, the only way you can really resist it is with political power backing you up. And so once you make that pivot, the centrality of virtue in your coalition starts to retreat because you're not counting on that to preserve your community. You're counting on political power to do it. And that also means that the political becomes much more important, and it becomes defined in such a way that politics isn't really about pursuing the common good, but it's about how do we secure power so we can reward our friends and punish our enemies. And once you make that pivot, virtue just really disappears from the discourse, and everything becomes about politics and winning and things like character and like, are there things where we just can't do it even if it might help us gain power? It's just wrong to do. That kind of question just becomes incoherent.
Yeah, and I want to unpack that a little bit more, but I think there's so many elements to that we've got to get to, and we've got to understand, and regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum today, this idea that we have to get to the power first so we can do the other things is really the beginning of the end in my mind.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think actually historically you can find plenty of examples of Christian communities that have thrived without having access to hard political power. I mean, that's the story of the early church. Certainly, it's the story of the Copts, for example, for centuries in Europe. I have a friend who's Egyptian, and one time we were talking about this, and he's second-gen Egyptian-American. And he looks at me, and he had this great rant where he's like, my ancestors in the faith have persisted amidst persecution, amidst having our children kidnapped, amidst all of these things. And you evangelicals have a couple political things go against you, and you're just falling to pieces. And the point there is not that we should desire to be have the kind of situation the Copts have had for long chunks of their history in Egypt. I'm not saying we should chase after that.
Right.
But I am saying that there is a form of Christian flourishing and health that is possible apart from holding political power.
I think that is so important. I always go back to this idea, and often as I work with young people, say, look, a person is not honest just because they haven't had a chance to lie. And I think in the same way, a person is not faithful just because they haven't been persecuted, or they haven't had to stand up for their faith, or they haven't had to live their faith in the absence of that hard power.
Yeah, I think the measure of a person's convictions is often what are they willing to pay for them.
Yeah.
And the answer that's happened a lot lately is that, concerns with, say, the character of an elected official, basically the degree to which evangelicals have been concerned about that is almost exactly related to the degree to which it's advantageous politically for them to be concerned about that. So when they could use character as a cudgel to beat up the Democrats, they were all about character. And then 20 years later, many of the exact same people who were so up in arms about character when it was Bill Clinton in view suddenly just weren't interested when the politician in view is a Republican. Yeah. I think it was Al Mohler said he would have to, in 2016, said he would have to go back and apologize to Bill Clinton if he were to endorse Trump now. And then sure enough, in 2020, there he is. And I don't think, I doubt that he's apologized to Bill Clinton.
To me, so many of these end up in our Shakespearean space of, who for one small grape would the entire vine destroy. And we've got some in political power that are, for one, the promise of one powerful political grape are not just the vine, but they're like burning down the whole vineyard. How do we get back to the character conversation? How do we get back to the virtue conversation? Not in the context of power, but in this is what actually leads to human flourishing and stronger communities and a better society.
To some degree, I think it's just that we're actually going to be talking about that and backing it up with our actions. I remember years ago when I think it was Mark Sanford, his scandal after he was a socially conservative kind of Christian evangelical politician from South Carolina who was caught having an affair. And he was gone for 6 months, and then suddenly he was back in politics. And I think it was Ross Dow that made a comment about, I'm a John Profumo man in a Mark Sanford world. John Profumo was a conservative politician in the mid-century UK who was caught in a scandal and then basically disappeared from public life for the rest of his life and worked quietly. And I don't remember exactly where it was, but it was kind of the equivalent of disappearing from public life and volunteering 40 hours a week in a soup kitchen kind of thing. We need to be talking about virtue, and then the talk has to be backed up with action. And hopefully that action is just modeling beautiful communal life. But I think it also has to be modeling this actually means enough to us that we're willing to pay a price for that, whatever it might be. If that's some form of penitence when we fail, if that is accepting a defeat when our principles kind of require us to do so because the thing that would help us win, we can't do. Yeah. But I think there has to be conversation, because you have to be teaching what virtue is, what character is. And if you're not talking about it, then how are people going to learn? How are they going to, how do they learn? But if that talk isn't backed up with real costly action, no one's going to take it seriously.
Costly action, maybe the most important form of action, because it actually tests your conviction in the principles themselves. A great perspective as always, Jake Meter. You need to check out this piece. Go to the Dispatch, thedispatch.com. It's called After Virtue Came Strongman Politics. And Jake, always appreciate your perspective. Love your writing and your thinking. And also make sure you check out Mere Orthodoxy. Great place to do some good noodling, some good thinking every day. Jake, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
Again, that's Jake Meter joining us, editor-in-chief of Mere Orthodoxy, and he is just a great writer and thinker. And I find myself going back to a lot of the things that Jake writes, a lot of the discussions we have here on the show, and this whole idea of we've become so engrossed and so obsessed with the power component of all of this that it's undermined our ability to have the virtue, the character, the good conversation in our society, because everyone's worried about what you do, and you do whatever you can so you can wield and use the levers of power. But I think Jake's got it right. If we aren't doing that based on virtue and character, if we aren't willing to let go of power because we're not willing to do things for the sake of power, that's actually where power begins. We'll continue that conversation as we move along. We'll step aside. More Inside Sources coming up next.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. The gold medal for morning news and traffic updates. Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon from 5 to 9. Topping the podium for talk shows about Utah's most pressing stories. David Dujanovic at 9 and Boyd Matheson at 1. And setting a new world record for news stories and his Minute of News, Jeff Kaplan from 3 to 7. We're ready for Salt Lake City 2034 at KSL News Radio.
Discover the best of senior living at Trio Orem and Trio South Ogden. Today's older adults aren't wrapping up their life's journey, they're seeking a new one. And Trio Independent Living is here to help them do just that. With a smart, modern, and connected lifestyle, residents cultivate relationships and maximize independence through signature programs like Prime Fit Wellness that bring living well and well-being to life. Welcome to the new age of senior living. Schedule your visit at leisurecare.com/Utah today.
That precious cool air inside your house shouldn't be seeping out through old drafty windows, but if it does, get stylish new windows and frames at factory direct pricing from Advanced Window Products. This is Jeff Kaplan. Advanced Window Products has been building windows here in Salt Lake City for 38 years, but even if you don't need windows, they can give your interior a fresh new look with blinds, shades, and shutters from Graber. They offer custom crafted window treatments featuring the trendiest designs, premium materials, and quality without compromise. Advanced Windows offers start-to-finish service with shorter lead times so you get your custom blinds, shades, and shutters sooner. Call them for a free in-home consultation with their designers. It's a no-pressure experience, and if you need new windows, $2,500 off on 10 windows or more. Or if you need window treatments, it's Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100, or go to advancedwindowsusa.com.
This Friday from 10 to 1, the movie show comes to Sound Sleep Medical. But first, take the time to learn about a better night's rest. Sound Sleep Medical delivers oral appliance therapy that treats sleep apnea without the use of CPAP machines. They're professionally fit, warranted, and covered by most major medical insurance. End the days of a poor night's sleep. Sound Sleep Medical will help. Call Sound Sleep Medical at 801-716-8672 for details. Sound Sleep Medical.
Okay, let's go. Top row.
EYECARE?
Good. Next row.
AM America? iCareAmerica.org?
Yes. Eye Care America helps seniors who haven't had a medical eye exam in 3 or more years. They also help those with an increased risk for glaucoma, and the appointment is often free or at no out-of-pocket cost. It's easy to see if you qualify. Go to EYECareAmerica.org.
Don't miss the Rocky Mountain Gun Show this weekend at the Mountain America Expo Center. Get 500 rounds of 9mm ammo for just $99.95.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, Salt Lake County Sheriff's deputies investigating a deadly shooting at the Mount Olympus trailhead. Second, Salt Lake City police recovered more than 600 fentanyl pills and arrested a man at a routine traffic stop. And third, stocks still down before the end of the day, with the markets down about 3 percentage points this afternoon. 99 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Of course, we all recognize the need to protect children, and as is often the case, there's some very interesting intersections. The intersection of child welfare, race, civil rights. It's ignited a fierce debate in New York, highlighting just how complex those challenges are, and those particularly in the child protection system. And so we want to unpack that a little bit because I think it leads to a broader conversation in terms of the right kind of principles, the right kind of policies that hopefully will lead to the right kind of results. And joining us to help break that down, as always, Lois Collins joins us from the Deseret News, Deseret.com. And Lois, I know this is one of those that is super complicated. It leads to a lot of very passionate opinions about things. But first, just break it down for us in terms of what this committee did, what the result was, and then let's get to the conversation we ought to be having.
Okay, so this was the New York Advisory Committee to the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, and they looked at the numbers of different stages in the child welfare system. So they looked at the number of kids who were removed from their homes, the number of reports of abuse and neglect, the number of different kinds of actions that were taken, and they said Black children, Black families are way overrepresented in all of this. And interestingly, I don't think anybody disagrees with that. I think that there is evidence that there are more calls to the hotline about Black families, that they are treated fairly harshly sometimes in the family court system, that they may be held to a different kind of standard. But the push, so they came up with some recommendations, and the first recommendation to try to fix this problem was to say that there would be no more anonymous reporting. So you had to stand behind your report. It couldn't just be racism, because their bottom line claim was this goes to the Commission on Civil Rights because it's a racist issue. So they said no anonymous reporting. Then they said that there's a lot of conflation of poverty with abuse and neglect. So we're not going to do any more of that. We're not going to say that if you're not providing right for your kids, then you're neglecting them. They said that there would be no more reporting of tests for drugs, and that a parent's drug use would not be used as evidence of abuse or neglect. And I think that's really what first sparked the pushback. Because I think that most people would say if a baby's born with cocaine in its system or fentanyl in its system, that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
So to say that you wouldn't report that to a child welfare system seems a little bit off. And I'm not a child welfare expert, but I'm a fairly logical person, and that one seems a little bit odd to me. I think that there are different approaches that are bandied about, and the recommendations did not take in broad approaches. Like you might say, okay, we're going to report it, and then we're going to try to keep these families together and make sure that the parents get substance use treatment or something.
Right.
But there was a lot of pushback because they said no reporting. And so the big pushback in the report that I covered was from the Manhattan Institute and the American Enterprise Institute. And these two authors, the guy who was from the Manhattan Institute is a man named Rafael Mangual, and he was on the committee that made the report, and he said that it was so activist and so illogical that he stepped down. He didn't want his name on it. And without him, the report was unanimous. So the complaints that they had about the report were basically that, in the first place, it was a very surface look. They counted numbers. They said, okay, we've got X percentage of people who are Black in the population, and we've got X percentage of reports. That's off. Instead of looking at why there were reports or what the issues were, or even whether some of the reports were like the same family 28 times, which makes a huge difference
Yeah.
in how you look at the numbers. So if all you're looking at is the numbers, he said you're completely missing the point. When they went through and looked at the numbers and talked to child welfare workers in New York, they said that there was pretty good evidence that most of the substantiation happened after children had been removed because of substantiated cases and then went back to those same families and were again neglected or abused.
Mistreated.
So clearly there were repeats in the numbers. It wasn't that you had 60 people in the population and 4 of them were blacks and they got, but it has sparked what I think is a really good opportunity to say, what are the needs, what are the causes, and how do we fix this? And what the report and the complaints about the report seemed to miss was that the kids should be front and center.
Yeah.
So Manguel said, if you are, maybe you are disproportionately helping these kids be safe. How do you know if you don't investigate beyond those surface numbers?
Yeah. And this is one of those classic examples where we have to go underneath the numbers, because if you just look at the surface numbers, you can draw all kinds of conclusions and all kinds of things, some of which may be true and some of which may be so far off. Because as you pointed out, Lois, some of those may be repeats. It may be the same family that's struggling over and over and over again. There can be a host of different things. And I agree with you that this is an opportunity because of some of the controversy around it. It actually has created space to have the better conversation. So let's have that better conversation in our last few minutes here, putting the children first, looking at where that butts up against the parents and where they are and what's happening in their world. How do we get to that better conversation? What should that look and sound like?
You know, I'm not, like I said, I'm not a social worker. So within that realm, I'm not sure what should happen, but what I do know is we should stop just counting and calling it a day. We need to look at how kids' lives are impacted. If you're going to talk about not doing blood testing on newborn babies, and they don't just test babies of a certain race, they test babies. If you don't do testing along the way during pregnancy or whatever, then you miss a chance to intervene and say, let us help you. What is this core issue and how can we help? So maybe part of it is a less punitive, more helpful approach. But I think you have to really look at the impact on the kids. So if you have a child that's born with cocaine in her system, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to help her? And what's the impact if you don't? And then you start measuring. Whether, it's not just a numbers game, it's a person game.
Yeah, that's exactly right. This is not about just numbers and statistics. This is about, it's about children and making sure we're putting them in the best space so that they can thrive and that they can flourish and have opportunities in their future. And so often it is when we just look at the numbers, we often get to just kind of the harsh reality kinds of decisions of what should and shouldn't happen. As opposed to how do we take that principle, how do we deal with the needs of that child, how do we help that parent, whether it's overcoming their addiction or learning how to budget or learning how to hold a job or whatever the case may be, that just gets us to a completely different space in the conversation.
We should also look at the system itself. There's no question
so true.
That the numbers are somewhat off.
Yeah.
There's probably not much question that families of color are treated differently by the court system, by family courts and other things. In some communities, maybe not in all communities, it varies, but there's no question. So I think that the people who are in the system should really be doing a hard assessment of themselves and saying, are we being fair to these families? And if we're not, how do we fix that? And if we are, then how can we best help them?
Yeah. Great perspective as always. Lois Collins with the Deseret News. You can check out her piece at Deseret.com. Lois, as always, thanks for joining us.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, Boyd.
All right. Great perspective there from Lois Collins. Again, you can check out her piece at Deseret.com. And it's balancing all of those things in the welfare system, the impact it has on black families, the impact it has on society as a whole. And again, it has to start within the system. The system's got to take a hard look at itself and what numbers it's looking at and how it's dealing with that. And then, of course, putting the child and the child's needs front and center has to be the front end of that equation in order to get the right result on the back end. All right, we'll go ahead and step aside for some bottom of the hour news. More Inside Sources coming up next here on KSL News Radio. Stick around. We'll be right back.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bonas. KSL's top story this hour. Attorneys for Tabor Honey are trying another last-minute tactic trying to stop his execution. They're asking Governor Spencer Cox to stop the execution set for Thursday morning. And they're questioning the process used to obtain the drugs needed for lethal injection. Honey was sentenced to death for the murder of Claudia Ben back in 1988. 2 world records were broken this weekend at the second annual YSA conference for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. More than 31,000 signed a card with birthday wishes for President Russell M. Nelson's upcoming 100th birthday, and they also broke the record for the largest ever speed dating event. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Hurricane Debbie made landfall this morning in Florida, and since then at least 4 people are known dead in the hurricane. The deaths were confirmed this afternoon by Governor Ron DeSantis.
We have 4 confirmed fatalities.
And Debbie is now weakened to a tropical storm, but officials warn it is still dangerous. Your money at this moment, a catastrophic day, it seems like, on the stock markets. The Dow down 1,033 points on the day. The NASDAQ down 576. The S&P 500 down 160 points now at the close of trading. And our KSL weather looks like hot, sunny. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
We hope you have the right app on your phone for news. You probably have dozens.
But the KSL News Radio app, well, it makes our live stream super easy.
Plus, our talk shows are right there as podcast for your workday.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
The best things in life, they come in twos. 2 scoops of ice cream, 2 tacos. And now for a limited time, get our best deal of the year. Buy any phone when you switch to Consumer Cellular and get 2 months of service free. That's right, the same fast, reliable nationwide coverage as Big Wireless, now with 2 months free. Proof the best things in life really do come in twos. Visit consumercellular.com or call 1-888-FREEDOM. Second and third month of monthly base service fee waived for new customers with the purchase of a phone and activation by September 2nd, 2024. Taxes, fees, and third-party charges will apply. See website for additional details.
Savings. Now that's speaking the Lowe's language. And when you join My Lowe's Rewards for free, the savings just keep coming. Save money with member-only offers, plus earn points when you shop. More points equal more rewards, just for you. Because Lowe's knows you earned it, literally. Learn more about our loyalty program at lowes.com/MyLowe'sRewards and become a member for free today. Program subject to terms and conditions. Points are awarded on eligible purchases. See Lowe's.com/terms for full details. Subject to change.
Our friends at Utah Community Credit Union want to lower your auto payment.
What are you paying on your auto loan right now? I bet we can save you some money because you can get a UCCU auto or RV loan for as low as 6.49%.
Matter of fact, we just learned that UCCU recently received the Data Track Great Rate Award, certifying that UCCU provided more than, are you ready for this, $45 million in savings to the members in 2023 alone.
They're all about saving you money. I've been banking there for years, and with UCCU's new elevated checking, your low-rate auto loan gets even lower. It'll drop an additional 0.25%. That's off the lowest rate on any UCCU auto or RV loan.
Yeah, that means right now you'll get that auto or RV loan for as low as 6.49%.
Just open the UCCU mobile banking app, or you can go to uccu.com/switch.
You can also call UCCU or just stop by any branch. Utah Community Credit Union. You're going to love where you bank.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
We have had a crash called out at 2700 West, 4100 South, and traffic lights that have been malfunctioning in all directions at I-80 and the Redwood Road on and off ramps. Plan to visit the 12th Annual Utah Renaissance Fair, August 23rd and 24th at the Young Living Farms in Mona, Utah. Visit utahrenfair.org for tickets and details. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
It'll be dry and hot in northern Utah. High today of 101. Tomorrow, 103. 100 the day after. Thunderstorms could bring a risk of flash flooding in the central and southern parts of the state. And right now, we're at 99 degrees under partly cloudy skies. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, as our own election time heats up and gets a little more intense, there's also other places around the world that we're looking at very closely. Venezuela, of course, stands at a critical standstill with the recent election results showing an overwhelming support for opposition candidate. And meanwhile, Maduro's regime continues to manipulate the outcome and control the messaging. And so it's time to unpack that a little bit. Of course, there's been demonstrations in Venezuela. The Venezuelan people are hungry for change. That seems to be the message that's coming out of almost every quarter of the land there in Venezuela. So we want to get underneath all of that and understand exactly what's going on. Really thrilled to have joining us on the program today Daniel DiMartino, founder of the Dissident Project, is a graduate fellow at the Manhattan Institute, a PhD candidate in economics at Columbia University, and is an immigrant from Venezuela. And Daniel, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful piece in the Dispatch today talking about Venezuela's darkest hour. So give us a little bit of the lay of the land in terms of where you think we are, what people you're talking to are saying, and what is the current reality when it comes to Venezuela?
Yeah, well, what's happening now is the opposition keeps having rallies. They can't have as many as you would expect. You know, for a stolen election, you would imagine people would be out in the street every day, right, demanding that the results are respected, especially when such blatant fraud happened. We're talking about the opposition candidate got about 70% of the votes, and the regime got, with all the cheating they do, with, you know, making people, forcing them to vote, bribing them to vote, they got only 30% of the vote. So even with that, even banning all the Venezuelans outside of our country from voting, which we are actually allowed to vote, but they didn't allow us, they still got just 30%. And the issue is Venezuela is economically decimated. Socialism has made it extremely poor, and as a consequence, Venezuelans just can't go a day without working. And this is why, you know, socialism is such a useful tool to keep people under government oppression, because people are only thinking about what's next to eat. And so the opposition strategy right now is to keep the pressure by holding protests at least once a week, it seems, and then trying to maneuver in the meantime the international pressure to try to get Maduro to step down.
Yeah, and so as you look at that, you mentioned the fact that the opposition candidate, Edmundo Gonzalez, that he has made some appearances. He had been a little bit in hiding, obviously under threat from the Maduro regime. What is the sense in terms of those rallies? Are they having an impact? And we know that the United States has recognized Gonzalez as the rightful winner of the election. I think that was an important step. What else are we hearing? Is the international community starting to come together around this?
Well, there is this sort of negotiation that is being sponsored by Colombia, by Brazil, and by Mexico, but really it's just a bad faith negotiation that the opposition is not participating in, because who are the presidents of these countries? The president of Colombia is under accusation by his own government of his presidential campaign having been financed by Maduro himself. The president of Brazil is a longtime ally of Chavez, and the president of Mexico is a longtime ally of Cuba. So none of these are countries that would, or governments, not countries, but governments that would want Venezuela to be free. And so what I think the strategy that they have, as well as the regime, who is very happy, by the way, Maduro is very happy about what Colombia is sponsoring, is to delay, because for them, the longer they can stay in power and the more appeased the opposition is, the more time they have to arrest people and to you know, just maintain their status quo. And I think the opposition is trying to get international pressure ramped up, especially from the U.S., but I'm not sure how much this administration is willing to do that, given that it would signal that their past policy of sanctions relief was a failure.
I think that is absolutely true in terms of the results of all of that. We know there's been an exodus from Venezuela over the last many years in the millions. It's hard to even fathom. I believe the number was over 7 million.
Yeah, so it's the largest refugee crisis that is not caused by a war in world history. That is how large it is. 8 million is now the number of refugees from Venezuela.
Wow. And so as you look at that also creates clearly a kind of a brain drain, a talent drain from the country. And so how does that perpetuate? And I want to go back to this idea that you mentioned that a lot of this for Maduro is really about delay and stall, because that's the easiest way to get back to his status quo and remaining in power.
Well, it relates because what's going to happen if the regime doesn't fall in the next several months, maybe in the second half of this year, is that people are just going to leave Venezuela. I know a lot of people, even right after the election was held, because a lot of people had, in my opinion, false hopes that the regime would recognize their own loss. I never believed that. If I did, I wouldn't have left. But a lot of people did have that hope, and as a consequence, they were waiting to see what happened before making the decision of whether to leave Venezuela. And now I'm hearing from a lot of people that they are making preparations to leave Venezuela in the moment. They're waiting for things to calm down because there's a lot of people whose passports are getting canceled by the government. It's actually very worrisome. I mean, the level of political persecution happening right now is the most totalitarian outside of North Korea I've ever seen. People are being stopped in the street, and then the police is asking for your phone, and then they're checking your Instagram, your Facebook, your Twitter, and seeing what you posted to see if you support the government or not.
Wow, that is chilling and stunning. To think that is possible. And so as you look at the path forward, because you keep your eye on this closely as the founder of the Dissident Project, give us a sense of what can be done. What should the international community be doing? What should us as individuals be thinking about in order to get to a better result for the Venezuelan people?
Well, I think that if you're an individual who knows people in Venezuela and wants to help, there are ways to help. And a lot of people want to get money from abroad in order to pay for medical things, to even pay for materials in order to be able to hold protests, And so all of this can be done. I mean, it's totally legal from our standpoint in the U.S. What is illegal is that the always live Venezuelan regime can take action against the people who receive money from abroad. So you have to find some sort of intermediary or NGO who can transfer money on your behalf if you want to help somebody in Venezuela. I know many people who are in dire need of humanitarian aid, and I think that's a way. A different way to help would be for governments abroad, not just us people. And I think the most important thing is, sure, sanctions help, and I think the sanctions need to be reinstated. But the most important thing is what the regime cares about, which is their own personal life. And what threatens that is getting arrested and getting their families arrested. The reality is that many members of the Maduro regime had family members living outside Venezuela. If we were serious as citizens of the world that we want to make it difficult for Maduro to remain in power, it's as simple as arresting criminals who live all over the planet, mostly in Europe, some in the U.S., but mostly in Europe. And the U.S. should be pressuring Europe, and the Europeans should themselves be arresting these people, confiscating their assets, not deporting them to Venezuela. That's not what needs to happen. They need to be arrested, and they need to be used as bargaining chips because these are criminals.
Right.
And what they're doing to innocent Venezuelans, tortures, I mean, the level of tortures that are happening now and how much they're mocking people. They even release videos, the military members who do the tortures, describing them and mocking people in their faces.
Wow.
There's a video of this mom her 16-year-old daughter who was not even in a protest. She got kidnapped from the street. She doesn't know where her 16-year-old daughter is, and it's been a week.
Wow, that is. It's hard for us to wrap our head around that sitting here in the United States of America, where we can protest, where we can come together, and that is just hard to wrap our head around. And then the idea of 8 million people leaving, not in war, not in famine, but because of what is happening that's preventing human flourishing, I think is just absolutely stunning. Daniel DiMartino, founder of the Dissident Project, again, graduate fellow at the Manhattan Institute, and a great piece at The Dispatch. Check that out at thedispatch.com. Daniel, thanks so much for joining us today. Fantastic perspective. We look forward to continuing the conversation with you as things continue to progress there in Venezuela.
Anytime. Thank you so much.
All right. Again, that's Daniel DiMartino, and a great piece in The Dispatch, chilling in many ways. We think we have some problems, and we do have some problems, but this is otherworldly in terms of what's happening down in Venezuela, and the world needs to watch, and the world needs to act. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Congressman John Curtis. It can be stressful waiting for an answer from a government agency. If you live in Utah's 3rd Congressional District and you need help with a passport, the VA, IRS, Social Security, or any other federal agency, come to my open house on August 5th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at American First Credit Union in Vineyard. I'll give you a brief update on Congress, and my staff will be available to help you. If you're unable to make it, you can also call my office at 801-922-5400 or visit curtis.house.gov for additional events. It's my honor to represent you. If you live in Utah's 3rd Congressional District and you need help with a passport, the VA, IRS, Social Security, or any other federal agency, come to my open house on August 5th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at American First Credit Union in Vineyard. Paid for by official funds authorized by the House of Representatives.
You don't have to live with cataracts. The Moran Eye Center can help you return to crisp, clear vision. Recently ranked among the nation's top 10 eye centers by U.S. News & World Report, Moran's highly trained cataract surgeons give you state-of-the-art personalized care. If you're looking for a cataract doctor near you, the Moran Eye Center has the top experts in the field right here in Utah. Visit MoranEyeCenter.com and schedule a consultation today.
I'm Jeff Jr. with Trajan Wealth, debunking 3 myths about fiduciaries. And you're going to be surprised about myth number 3. Myth number 1. Fiduciaries are too expensive. Not at Trajan Wealth. Our interests are aligned with yours, so we don't need to push costly investments. The more you make, the more we make. It's that simple. Myth number 2. They will only want to sell me something. Absolutely not. At Trajan Wealth, we have hearts of teachers, and it's our goal to educate and empower, not sell. And the biggest myth? Myth number 3. Fiduciaries are only for the wealthy. Not at Trajan Wealth. Whether you have 50 grand or 50 million, we know it was hard-earned and we'll treat it as such. Let's grow together. So, here's your opportunity for a 100% complimentary professional Q&A. Call Trajan today at 801-899-7600. That's 801-899-7600.
Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
Addiction is a family illness, and at Renaissance Ranch, long-term sobriety is a reality. We help family relationships so you don't have to recover alone.
We're the professional staff at Renaissance Ranch.
We don't see addicts as bad men trying to be good.
Rather sick men that need to get well.
This is our message to them.
That it doesn't matter how lost, beaten down, or defeated you may feel. Our greatest desire for you
is to see what we see.
That you are capable of healing.
Prepare to emerge to be the husband, the father, and the son that you were destined to be. So to our new brother,
we say, welcome home.
Addiction is a family illness, and at Renaissance Ranch, long-term sobriety is a reality. We help family relationships so you don't have to recover alone. New hope, new life at Renaissance Ranch.
Troy, was no one going to tell me it's already August?
Summer's really flying by, huh?
It's time to lock in for some serious summer fun before it's too late.
And Bish's is prepped to make your summer finale the best part of the year during the end of summer sizzling sales event happening now.
An unforgettable end to your summer starts with epic RV deals to extend your camping season.
That's why right now Bish's RV is offering 0 payments until 2025 on approved credit.
What? All play and no pay for the rest of the year?
You know it. Plus, find low payments on every type of RV with no hidden prep fees.
Like travel trailers starting under $149 per month OAC.
And fifth wheels starting under $299 per month OAC.
Plus, get a free 1-year Bish Fix membership with every RV purchase.
Make your summer finale the best part of the year during the end of summer sizzling sales event. Only at Bish's RV in Salt Lake and American Fork, where memories begin.
OAC 90 days, no payments, finance plus 60 days with supplemental payment. Not all buyers will qualify. Based on 20% down, 8.99% APR for 180 to 240 months. Stock numbers 84310, 83690, 79362, 7800, subject to price sale. See dealer for details.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Security. We are always thinking of ways to save you time and make things easier. That's why we created My Social Security. Opening a My Social Security account gives you secure access to your personal record and interactive tools tailored for you. You can see if you are eligible to receive benefits, view spousal benefit estimates, and compare retirement benefit estimates at different ages or dates when you want to start receiving benefits. Already receiving benefits? Use your account to change your address, set up or change direct deposit, get a proof of income letter, and more. In most states, you can also request a replacement Social Security card. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security. Securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson.
Our goal every day on Inside Sources is to help you divide the rage from the reason, elevate the conversation, connect the dots, and make the news make sense in your world. We have conversations with great thinkers, with great leaders, and great people who are just out there making a difference in the world. Now, we do talk about politics, but only so we can discuss society and culture. And then we explore society and culture so we can discuss principles and the people in America and the state of Utah who actually live them and apply them every day. We bring the best and brightest minds to the state of Utah, and we love to take the Utah model and send it out to our nation's capital and beyond. Every day on Inside Sources, you'll be part of that conversation. To help you understand things in a different way, we'll get you to think again about what you think you know, but most important, we're going to help you have confidence to have crucial conversations in your community and in your own home.
Join Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson, 1 to 3 on KSL News Radio.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, attorneys for Tabor Honey asking Governor Spencer Cox to stop the execution set for Thursday morning. Second, a couple of world records set over the weekend by the YSA Conference of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. One was the world record for most signatures on a birthday card, and the other for the largest speed dating event. And third, 4 fatalities have been confirmed this afternoon in Florida with Tropical Storm Debbie. 99 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. As we round out the program today, just want to have a little Olympic moment. Of course, they've just continued to roll on all kinds of amazing effort and accomplishment, overcoming adversity in so many different ways. There's just so many lessons and so many principles to learn in just watching the Olympics. But I want to focus on just one today because I think it's very applicable to where we are as a community, as a country, as a society. And if you didn't watch over the weekend, there was a stirring and stunning moment in the streets of Paris and right next to the Eiffel Tower. And it was in the cycling race, the road cycling, which, of course, is a European event. After all, it is the moniker of the Tour de France. And so an American, Kristen Faulkner was in that race, and she actually didn't qualify for the Olympics. She was a replacement for someone who chose to decline their position on the Olympic team, walk away from the sport. And so Kristen was not originally scheduled or slated to be on the Olympic team as a cyclist, but she did, and she showed up. And it's about a 100-mile race, 98-point-something mile race around the streets. And, of course, the streets of Paris were flooded with people. They love their cycling. And this women's event, as it continued through the streets of Paris and worked its way back towards the Eiffel Tower, there was a group of 4 riders that were all kind of bunched together as they got to about 3 kilometers out to the finish line. And then it happened. Kristen Faulkner just took off. She just took off in a mad sprint. And the other 3 riders, I don't know if they just assumed she'd run out of gas or that she was just crazy for starting a sprint 3 kilometers out. But Kristen Faulkner continued to sprint all the way to the end of the race. And in fact, I loved the fact that when she got to the finish line, we live in this era where everyone's always about beating their chest and raising their arms in the air in triumph and telling the world to look at them. Kristen Faulkner did not take her hands off the handlebars all the way through the end of the race. Like, it was head down. She was just sprinting. I was wondering and a little bit worried if she was actually going to stop because she was going so fast and so determined to get across that finish line. She ended up defeating those other 3 riders by almost a minute. 58 seconds later, the second-place rider came in. That's a great Olympic moment. Now, there's more to the story. Some more principles, I think, within the story of Kristen Faulkner. One of those is the fact that she grew up in Alaska. Alaska is not actually your bastion for road cycling. And then she went off to college and graduated, and she started cycling as a hobby just 7 years ago. So often when we talk about these Olympic athletes, we talk about those that, started training before they could walk or, while they were still drinking out of a bottle. And then they do it all their lives, and it's all they do, and there's so much burnout, and there's all of those things. And she picked it up as a hobby less than 7 years ago, and now she's standing on the top of the Olympic podium with a gold medal in France. Unbelievable. But the principles that I want to focus on as it relates to Kristen Faulkner, one, starting late is okay. You don't have to have your children decide that they're going to be a second baseman or that they're going to be a goalie by the time they're 6. You don't have to do that. And I know it's super competitive. I know all the pressure is if your kids are not in the competitive league and they're not on the travel team and they're not on this, they're not on that they're not going to make it or have a chance. And while that may be true in the short term, I think Kristen Faulkner proved it out. Look, you could start late. And I think there's a great lesson in there for adults as well. Sometimes you think, oh, I'm too old to do this. Oh, I'm too old to do that. Well, Kristen Faulkner proved all of that wrong. Just start. Just start. The other thing that I loved about her story is she said she started writing because she just loved it and she needed to get outside. I think she was working in investment banking or some profession there in New York, and she just needed to get out. Needed to get back out into nature, needed to get back out in some air and some trees, and she did that. And so what became just a hobby and a way to relax ultimately led her to a gold medal in the 2024 Olympics. And just the joy that she finds in all of that, I think, is another important lesson in all of that. And then just show up. She had an opportunity. She had overcome some adversity, some injuries, and obviously was not initially selected to the Olympic team, hadn't qualified. She grew up as someone who loved hiking and rowing in Homer, Alaska. As I said before, not your bastion for bike road racing, for sure. Not a cycling capital of the world. She did do a little bit of crew rowing at Harvard when she was going to school. But then she was a venture capitalist when she just started to try cycling. In fact, she described, I loved this, she described the fact that she didn't even know how to clip her feet into the pedals. And part of it was because she had some cycling shoes that were not compatible with the bicycle clips that she had. And so for a while she was riding around and not even doing it right. That's how primitive her foray into cycling was. And then, of course, she got the right equipment, she got the right passion, and ultimately she got the ultimate results in a gold medal. But I just love the fact that 7 years ago she wasn't even thinking, she didn't even know how to cycle, didn't even know how to clip herself into a bike. And now she's atop the world as a gold medalist. There's so many great lessons, so many great principles in the Olympics, and it's not just about the winning and losing, it's the stories and the principles that drive them. Well, that wraps it up for us on Inside Sources today. Thanks for joining us. I'm Boyd Matheson, and as always, as you go out into the world today, make sure you see something that inspires, say something that uplifts, and do something that makes a difference.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Good afternoon. It's 3 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Maria Shaleo, sitting in today for Jeff Kaplan. It's sunny in downtown Salt Lake City. We've just reached 100 degrees. KSL's top story. Final results are expected today for the recount of the 2nd Congressional District race, but the process has hit some last-minute issues. We have team coverage beginning with KSL News Radio's Amy Kobabe. Amy?
Maria, Colby Jenkins called for this recount last month. Incumbent Celeste Malloy was ahead in the race by just 214 votes, so well within the margin for a recount. And today is the last day for county clerks in the 2nd District to just double-check all those votes. The state website shows results right now for 11 of the 13 counties. A software glitch has been complicating that recount process for 2 counties, and KSL News Radio's Eric Cabrera continues our team coverage to explain.
Both Tooele and Washington counties encountered error messages from ballots that the machine can't read accurately on its